It's a tantalizing day in the world of Magic the Gathering, as Wizards of the Coast has just released a big wave of new Capenna teasers. On top of that, there's actually a little Baldur's Gate mixed in as well.
Magic. I am a wizard! History. I'm an old wizard! The magic historian. My bones hurt.
Greetings! Owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles, my friends, I hope the day finds you well because we have gathered for the joy of discussing a bunch of Magic the Gathering teasers. Now, if you're new to the game and you're not familiar with the teaser concept, it's kind of like a pre-spoiler season idea. We're not going to be looking at full-on Magic cards. You are going to get to see just part of the picture. Here is a card name. Here is part of what a card does, and you kind of illustrate the rest in your mind. So for me, this is a lot of fuel for the imagination, and I genuinely love these teasers. We've got mostly new Capenna Commander teasers. The new Capenna standard teasers will be coming out later on when Rosewater puts that list out. So we've got Commander focused stuff to talk about. Now, some of the stuff is not quite as exciting, like hearing things like there'll be at least one card that counts as a clue. That will be exciting for people who really focus on clue decks, make you go, okay, so one card that's going to be a clue, what's it going to be? Is it going to be a creature? Is it going to be an artifact, right? Like there are different ways you can do this. And clues admittedly have become a bigger part of Magic over time, and I do like the inclusion of them. I'm glad that Wizards has found a way to move from just using creature tokens and using other tokens as well. So that is pretty much the least exciting of the items on our list. The next is a permanent with an activated ability that you can only use after you have fought in a turn. And that doesn't mean after you've declared your attack step. That means you literally have to have had a creature in play who has been engaged in a fight with another creature. So fighting is something that's been a part of Magic for a very long time, but has just been keyworded in more recent times. So now they have a permanent that literally goes, have you used this ability? Okay, then you can do this. So it makes me wonder, does the permanent that has this activated ability also have the ability to fight, or is it something that you have to jump through more hoops to actually get going, but once you do, you get a bigger effect from? Because I tend to be a mono green player, I find that fighting is how I deal with most creatures that end up on the board that I need to get rid of. So anything that goes, hey, here's a bonus when you're fighting, is definitely of interest to me. The next thing on the list is even more interesting though, and that is a new legendary creature of a creature type that has never had a legendary creature before. So they're taking a creature type that has never gotten a legendary treatment at all in the entirety of Magic. So any creature type that's already had a legendary creature is off the list. So forget about minotaurs, zombies, all that sort of thing. It has to be a creature type that has literally never been done in legendary style. And off the top of my head, I don't really know what to suggest here because there are a lot of options, but a lot of them are going to be tiny corner cases that you don't really think of. But as far as I understand, this is something that players have been looking forward to. Remember, again, we're only given cryptic details here, right? So after that, we've got a card that is mechanically similar to a weird invasion cycle. An invasion was a block that happened back at the beginning of the 2000s. It actually has 25 different cycles in it. If you're not familiar with what a cycle is, just think about the dragons from the new Kamigawa set. Do you know how for each color there is a mythic legendary dragon? Well, that's a cycle. They all have the same abilities roughly that say when they go to the graveyard, you get to do one of these two choices, right? So you can see if you put all 5 of them on the table and look at them, you can see a thematic cycle that goes across them, right? So that's the idea of a cycle. With Invasion, you've got the 25 cycles, but we're specifically focusing on a weird invasion cycle. Now, you have to understand that these teasers were provided to us by a Wizards of the Coast employee, and I strongly doubt that they would ever just use the phrasing, a card that's mechanically similar to a bad invasion cycle. But I have picked out what I think are the two weirdest and generally most awful mechanics from Evasion, and these might be the types of mechanics that they're talking about bringing in. So the first one I want to talk about is the Djinn cycle. Now these are genuinely awful. I have never seen anybody playing these in any real capacity outside of a draft, right? You look at it and go, wait a minute. So these are cards that punish me for playing the color that they're from? This is a really bad idea. So somehow I've got, like, you look at the casting cost on these creatures and then you go, wait, they get -2/-2 if I have the most of, like, if my color that I'm playing is the most on the board. So I put out this white Djinn, and then because there's more white permanents on the board, he is now smaller. How is this advantageous to me? Like, I understand the idea is supposed to be make sure that you spread yourself across all of the different colors, make sure you don't have too much of any particular color on the board to get an advantage, but your opponents, the color of your opponent's permanents also count as part of this, right? Like, it doesn't just count your own permanents, which makes this a truly dreadful cycle. Like, I forgot these even existed. When I was trying to think of invasion cycles, my brain didn't come up with these. I did think of the next cycle we're going to talk about, but these ones are so awful that I literally deleted them from my brain. So they may be bringing something that is mechanically similar to this concept back, hopefully with an actual powerful execution that makes it feel right. And mechanically similar doesn't automatically mean that it's going to give a negative. It could just care that much about who has what permanent color has the most color permanents out, things like that. It's a weird take on like a pseudo devotion concept, but like from an awful perspective. Do you know what I mean, right? So that's one weird in quotation cycle. The other weird in quotation cycle is the leech cycle. These things are dreadful. Taking up after Darylor from Fallen Empires that nobody would ever say, hey, you know, we need more Darylor abilities. All the leeches are supposed to be like above curve creatures that give you a massive drawback. So you look at them and go, I get these creatures for a discount. But because I got that discount, now I have to pay extra mana for every spell I cast of that color. Like, you read these cards, these are dreadful. Absolutely dreadful. Look at the white leech. It's 1 white for a 1/3. 1 white for a 1/3, and its ability is you have to pay 1 white mana more for every white spell you cast. Like, that was considered above the curve when they made it. That's a rare card. These are rares. These are rares. 2 mana for a 2/2 flyer that makes you cast 1 more blue for every blue spell. These are rares. Do you know what I mean? Like, imagine cracking these out of packs. How, this is a weird cycle, right? When you think of this, you go, wait, where's the advantage? Look at the green one. What is it? 4 mana for a 5/5 and you have to pay 1 green? It's, what do you do? These are terrible. Obviously, bear in mind, these are from 20 years ago, right? So Magic wasn't as powerful overall as it is now. But at the same time, these guys were massively weak. So those are my 2 mechanically tied in cycles they may be leaning into. Maybe I'm just going over the top, but I also thought they were the most interesting to talk about in case you hadn't seen them, because they're genuinely awful. And in most cases, that's never going to come up in any videos when people are talking about stuff unless they're talking about terrible cards, right? So the next item on our list is a card that says, at the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent chooses money, friends, or secrets. All right? So I'm guessing, I mean, if you think about this, it feels like it's just going to fall into the types of tokens that exist in Magic pretty easily, right? If you go, okay, choose money. You choose money, great. You generate a treasure token. What? You want to choose secrets? Okay, there you go. You generate a clue token. You want to choose friends? That's where it falls apart a little bit, admittedly. The food token for friends is like, are you sharing a meal with friends? Is this supposed to tie into the concept? Because there's 5 different like crime families in the world of Capenna, and one of them is based on like hedonistic insanity, where it's like, bro, we're just here to party and have a good time. So is that representing friendship through like food and frivolity? That's where the concept for this kind of moves into other realms, where maybe this could mean something completely different. It might not actually have anything to do at all with tokens, and it could totally actually instead be something like, all players who chose this get this bonus. All players who chose this get this bonus. All players who chose this get this bonus. And that every turn you could just swap it up from one bonus to another. So it could be a bonus that's applied by a permanent in play, or it could just be a token generator that generates tokens for each player during your upkeep. Because when it comes to Commander, cards that are like help everybody out seem to be a lot more loved. Like when I first started playing Magic, people would play Howling Minds and stuff like that, and everybody would draw massive amounts of cards, and everybody at the table would cheer. We would play these huge games, and people would be drawing 6-7 cards a turn, right? But over time, it changed to the point where everybody just wanted to benefit themselves. They didn't really want to play things that gave any kind of benefit to anybody else, at least in one-on-one Magic, right? But when you turn to multiplayer Magic, it has that sort of friendship camaraderie aspect in terms of you don't know, like, hey, are you my friend against these guys? Oh wait, now you're my enemy and these guys are on my side. Like, alliances are always shifting, and the ability to provide resources to your allies and then over to these allies and whatever else, it's a lot more appealing because you can gain more benefit from it, right? You can maneuver around. So a card like this falls into that sort of concept. Now, there are apparently going to be a ton of one-off mechanics in this set as well, which I'm a huge fan of. And it was noted that one of these mechanics wasn't really expected to ever return. So this could be a wide range. Bear in mind that Magic has a ton of mechanics, but there is that little tickle at the back of my brain that goes, oh, are they going to bring banding back? Are they literally just going to go, you know what? We put banding in new Capenna Commander decks. I want it to happen. Do you know what I mean? Like, that just seems amazing to me. Anyhow, we actually got 5 card names and a fun little mini game too. So you can play this one yourself, and I'll fill in like 4 with my ideas as well afterwards. So we've got 5 card names, 5 different colors. Assign each of these 5 card names to what 5 colors you think they are. So we've got the card name In Too Deep, Jailbreak, Dodgy Jalopy, Misfortune Teller, and Life of the Party. Now, I'm going to go through what colors I think they are. Hopefully you've already made your selections. Feel free to put it in the comments below. So, I think it's going to break down like this. In Too Deep, to me, seems like a black card, where it's like, okay, you're already in too deep. There's no getting out of this. And I feel like In Too Deep is going to be a creature destruction card. A Sleep with the Fishes style In Too Deep. Here you go, you're out of the picture, right? Now, theoretically, it could also be a like blue enchantment that lets you take somebody's permanent or whatever. It's like, there's no leaving, you're in too deep, you're permanently a part of this. But black to me appears to be where this is going to show up. Now, the Jailbreak and Dodgy Jalopy, these two may be switchable, but I think that Jailbreak is going to be in white. And I think that's going to be to somewhat illustrate that on the world of Capenna, white plays by the rules, but kind of by its own rules more than societal rules overall. And they're also like they're the lawyers. Like Wizards of the Coast has described the brokers group as lawyers, right? So it could be that sort of a situation where it's a jailbreak, but done through like actual paperwork and whatever else, as opposed to like physically breaking open the jail. Dodgy Jalopy to me just sounds like a red piece of, like a red vehicle, right? Just a beat up red vehicle, although the Jailbreak could be red and the Dodgy Jalopy could be white. Misfortune Teller, to me, that's like blue, right? You're seeing into the future. You can see the bad things that are going to happen to me. That falls into blue's wheelhouse. And Life of the Party is going to be green. And that ties back into what I said earlier, where we have the one particular family that is very much hedonistic and is all chasing the pleasure and good times, right? So I feel absolutely like very, very confident putting Life of the Party as green. That is the one that I'm 1000% solid on. The other ones, it's a little bit more maneuverable. So let me know your thoughts on what the flavor is behind those and like the colors you assign to it. And we'll talk about what's going on with Baldur's Gate as well. Now, we recently talked about a whole bunch of Baldur's Gate information, so you can check that video out. It was in the last couple of videos I put out. But one thing we didn't talk about was the new initiative mechanic. So, Baldur's Gate is going to be bringing in a 4th dungeon. We got 3 dungeons with the first Dungeons & Dragons set, and we got the venture mechanic that took you into those dungeons. But now we have a new mechanic called Initiative, which will also be tied into going into dungeons as far as I understand, and will specifically key into the Undercity dungeon. Now it remains to be seen if Initiative only allows you to go into one particular dungeon, and it remains to be seen how it will change from Venture, right? Because we saw Venture was an absolute failure in the Dungeons and Dragons set originally. I saw a number of people trying to make it work on Arena, but ultimately the power level wasn't there. And Wizards of the Coast acknowledged that when they made the alchemy changes to a bunch of Venture cards to push them up to a power level that was significant enough that it could actually win an event, right? So Initiative, as far as I'm concerned, is probably going to be a stronger version of Venture, but it remains to be seen whether all 4 of these dungeons are going to be able to be used interchangeably, or if Wizards redesigned the dungeon concept because it was so weak beforehand, and now you can't combine the two. I mean, they had to make some big changes to those Venture cards. There was the one land where you had to have a legendary creature and pay 4 mana to be able to venture, and it was the worst, right? Like, it's so unusable. Anyhow, I think that Initiative will just be a boosted up Venture. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, because that wraps up all the teasers we have. We'll have some more teasers coming soon. Thanks for coming by. Big shout out to my patrons. See you next time.